Hello everyone, welcome to IBC 2.0 Continuum's third workshop from IBC Media. Just so you know, IBC 2.0 is the second edition of a massive 5-year agenda enabling the largest blockchain ecosystem initiative in India. Today we are going to have another interesting session on Substrate Connect and light clients and how they can be used in a dApp. Polkadot, as you all must be aware, is our headline sponsor for IBC 2.0 Continuum. This workshop is an opportunity to pick up some unique learnings on one of the most emerging tech spaces. Today I will be introducing you to Substrate. We'll be talking about Substrate. So Substrate framework lets you develop customizable and upgradable blockchains that are ready to become parachains on the Polkadot network. In this workshop, we'll be exploring how to leverage Substrate's tools like Substrate and the light clients and design domain-specific blockchain applications. This workshop features hands-on activities that can help you get started with meaningful Web3 development use cases. We have Nikos Kontakis with us today. He has been a part of Parity technologies for the past year and a half. Nikos has been working on Substrate Connect and light clients. His expertise is on React.js and Node.js, and his designation is a JavaScript application developer. So let's dive right in. Over to you now, Nikos.
Recording stopped.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you. Hello, everyone.
Hello. So I hope you're able to share your screen now.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Can you see my screen?
Yes, now it's visible, yes.
Okay. So should I start? Yeah. I'm sorry. Are we good to go?
Yes, we're good to go, yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Nikos. I am a JavaScript application developer at Parity Technologies for a year and a half, as mentioned. And this workshop is all about unstoppable apps and light clients, or simply how to build really decentralized apps using Substrate Connect on Substrate chains. Today, we will go through an intro on the node types of blockchains and light clients, the problem that exists at the moment, and the solution that Substrate Connect provides, what is and what comes with Substrate Connect. And after that, we will see some example of a simple integration of a light client into a DApp, or UApp, as we like to call it, unstoppable app, how to work with Substrate Connect. We'll see some code, and we'll also see some demos and applications of Substrate Connect and light clients. So first of all, I want very briefly to go through the team and some important dates that happened in the past. So we are currently a team of 4 led by Pierre Krieger, building Substrate Connect, the small light client, which is a core component of Substrate Connect, and more application tools around it. So I would like to go through some dates and milestones on how we landed to today. First attempt of the light client started in 2018, and until the end of 2019, after a working prototype and rewriting of code, the light client for Substrate chains was created. At the beginning of 2021, Substrate Connect project started on top of light client, and by April, the first MVP was ready, containing the standalone and the extension providers that we will see later on. By July, Substrate Connect got integrated into Polkadot.js apps, and in September of 2021, we added support for parachains in the light client. And by October, we had Substrate Connect ready for production and shipping in NPM and a little later, the extension was ready as well and is shipping in Chrome Store and Mozilla add-ons. After that, we proceeded with some API changes that we removed the dependencies of Polkadot.js API that existed, which led to the creation of Substrate Connect provider, which we will see how to use in a demo later on. The next steps is about adding new features, such as customizing boot nodes of the Lite client through the extension. My screen stopped shared. I will try to share. I cannot share my screen again. Our next steps are all about adding new features, such as customizing the boot nodes on the Lite client through the extension to fix bug and performance issues and redraw some of the UI. I will try once again to share my screen. Okay, now I can do it again.
Yes, you can try again. I think this one.
Yeah. So Excuse me?
It's visible now. We can see.
Okay, thank you so much. Before I kick off this presentation, I want to make an assumption. I assume that you all know a few things
in progress.
About blockchains. So I will start by talking about some node types that exist in the networks. So the node types in the network, the type of each node depends on different characteristics right now, right? The full node, which is not really a type, it depends on the context. It's a node that does not fulfill any of the rest of the characteristics. So we have the validator node configured to potentially produce blocks. We have the JSON RPC node, which gives public access to its JSON RPC endpoint. We have the boot node, which is the node whose address can be found in the chain specifications, and it's necessary to kick off the network. And we have the archive nodes, stores the entire state of the chain at each block since block 0, and it's useful to access historical data of the network. And the nodes that we're going to talk about are the Lite client ones that does not store the entire state of the chain, but request it on demand. So what is a Lite client node, actually? It is a Lite client node. It is exactly what the name says it, and I cannot stretch that enough. It means that it's a Lite version of a full node. It allows a decentralized app to access and interact with the blockchain in a secure and decentralized manner without having to sync the full blockchain. It is a client that's lighter than a full node concerning memory consumption, number of threads, code size in order to be distributed inside web pages. It is a node that doesn't store the entire state of the chain, but requests it on demand. And it connects to network and interacts in a fully trustless way with it. So what are the main differences? Apologies. What are the main differences between a Lite and a full node? So when you're compiling a Substrate node on your local machine, on your machine, what you get is the full node, as we mentioned before. It fully verifies all blocks. That node, it holds all the chain storage in its database. It holds all past blocks in its database. And at initial startup, it can take several hours to be ready. Now, the Lite client, and that's what Substrate comes with a small .Lite client, it only verifies the authenticity of blocks. It has no database whatsoever and initializes in a few seconds instead of hours. So let's see what is the problem and what Substrate Connect what's the problem that it tries to solve. So the problem is that the blockchain UIs at the moment are still centralized. So as per the assumption I mentioned before, you all know what a blockchain is and how the network works. So just a recap, a blockchain forms a peer-to-peer network with lots of nodes communicating with each other and keeping in sync. But how the UI, the app, actually connects to the network of nodes. So I said in the previous slide that the blockchain UIs are still centralized, meaning these, as we call decentralized apps, are actually still centralized. Let me explain what I mean by that. It means that the average developer is dependent on a centralized gateway in order to communicate with the node network. When a UI app tries to connect to the network, right now it has two ways to do it in order to avoid the title centralized, right? So the first way is to have a publicly accessible node. So that means that the UI connects to a third-party owned publicly accessible node client. so it connects that is really convenient for the developer because it works transparently, but it is centralized and insecure, which means that it's publicly accessible node that could be malicious if you don't trust the one who owns it. The second way is to have a user control node. The UI connects to a node client that the user has installed on their own machine, which makes it secure. It's trustless, connects to multiple nodes and verifies everything. But it's inconvenient because it is an installation process and having a node up and running and plus all the maintenance effort. Now, what is the solution to this problem? How can you connect your app in the network without trusting any third-party node and at the same time avoid the whole process, the whole effort of installing and running everything on your computer? So the solution is to bundle that node with your UI. What about integrating that node inside the application that communicates trustless with the network without the need of a third party or complicated installation? So what we offer here is that a light client will run inside your application, making it secure, trustless, and convenient because it works transparently. So here comes Substrate Connect. What is it? It is a real Substrate client that runs in JavaScript. It is a JavaScript library destined for developers building frontends, similar to Polkadot.js. It comes with an optional browser extension that end user can install for a huge boost in loading times instead of waiting few seconds, minutes for your application to sync. And it contains a light client and can be embedded in a web page, leading to browser-embedded light clients. In a sentence, Substrate Connect is a node bundled with UI that makes it secure and convenient to use. It provides the infrastructure to run a light client directly inside the browser or in any other web-based environment, from in-browser applications to browser extensions or Electron applications, without any deeper additional programming efforts needed. It comes as an NPM module, easy to install. It supports well-known relay chains, having their specs bundled in a single package. These are the Polkadot, Kusama, Rococo, and Western relay chains. If these are used, there is no further configuration required. And just to clarify here, these are the chains that can be used out of the box, but custom chains and parachains are also supported, and we will see how on a demo later on. Besides the library, we also created for easier and faster use in a Substrate Connect provider that exists inside Polkadot RPC providers and can be used as easy as other providers of Polkadot.js, such as a WS provider, where actually I have actually prepared a demo of migrating from the WS provider to the Substrate Connect provider. We will see it later on. Finally, a browser extension already exists in Chrome stores and Firefox add-ons, which also integrates a light client and supports the same chains mentioned before or custom chains. It provides faster synchronization of chains starting as soon as the browser initiates and shares the resources by reusing the same light client for all connected chains across all browser tabs. I have a need to explain what if the extension is installed or not. And if the extension does not exist, a light client will initiate inside the tab in each of the browser's tab, as can be seen in the graph here, and then sync and communicate with one or more needed networks. Of course, that can create a certain memory problem, and that's why extension exists. So in order to explain the memory problem, let's see this example, right? Let's say we have 4 tabs and their D apps try to connect to networks. As you can see, there is one light client in each tab that connects to same networks and more. So the first two connects in Polkadot and Parachim 1, and the second one connects to Kusama. So that brings more effort to the memory that the browser uses due to the fact that same networks are synchronizing in different instances of the light client in different tabs. Extension is actually solving this problem. The extension, as soon as the browser initiates, connects to the well-known relay chains, and once requests come that need connection to more network, extension connects to these networks, and then it syncs and transfers the information from and to the tabs, but always run one instance of light client connects one switch network and uses that connection for all needed tabs and applications. So now I'm gonna try to explain before continuing to the next chapter. I want to underline here what we just saw and the flow that is followed when the Substrate Connect extension is running in your browser, comparing to what we saw before. So when the extension is running, as soon as your browser initiates, it starts synchronizing with the relay chains that are integrated inside of it, which are, as I said before, Kusama, Polkadot, West End, and Rococo. Once this happens, the synchronization starts, and once tabs with the apps included initiates, they again check if the light client exists, and if not, if the extension exists, and if it does, it connects to that and gets the information needed almost instantly. That makes the synchronization of the application much faster than initiating a light client inside each tab. So let's see about the integration. Let's see about an extension example and the synchronization times with or without. I'm gonna have to stop and start again my sharing of the screen. I have to figure out how to do that. Yeah, I have. So I have in the browser here. Let me just share my screen. So I have the browser here on that contains the extension. I'm gonna first of all start an incognito browser and open a simple demo that is just running an application with Substrate Connect inside. You can see here that the small light client is initiating. The chain initialization is complete for West End. And we're right now connected to the light client. And we can see that the light client took 13.29 seconds to connect. The application took 13.29 seconds to connect. I'm going to open exactly the same application using the extension inside the browser. And I'm going to do it right here. And we can see that it took just 1 second, 1.38 seconds for the application to connect. And that's why, that's because the extension is running on the background. It is synchronized with the chain and everything works almost instantly. I'm going to try to go back to the presentation now. Yeah. And we're going to see some examples on how exactly to use Substrate with the code comparing to the existing code. So to WS provider, I mean. So integration or simply how to use Substrate Connect. So we're going to see examples of how it's used in the existing, like if you are an app developer and you want to integrate to connect to a network of, let's say, Polkadot or West End. So the first example we talked about is if the user connects to a node client that the user has installed on their machine. So what you have to do in this situation is in your local machine, you have to install all needed dependencies like Rust, OpenSSL, CMake, etc. Clone from GitHub the Polkadot repo, build and start the node locally, wait for the node to synchronize a couple of hours. And then in your DApp, you have to import the WS provider, initiate with the URL of your local machine, IP and port of your local machine where the node is running, create the API, and then interact using the Polkadot.js API. Now, the second scenario we saw is that you are trusting a third-party URL and you're connected through their node. So that's the publicly accessible node. So in this case, you have to find the WebSocket URL of the third-party node that you trust. And in your DApp, again, import the WS provider, create the WS provider with the URL that you trust, and create the API, and then interact using Polkadot.js API. Now, let's see how that would work in the live client. So in order to do that with the Substrate Connect, all you have to do is to import from the Polkadot RPC provider Substrate Connect, the SC provider and well-known chains. Create the SC provider with a given well-known chain. This enumeration contains for the 4 known chains. Connect that provider. create the API, and then interact using Polkadot.js API. That means that with just 2 lines, 3 lines changing, you have a live client running inside the browser. And we're actually gonna go on and we're gonna see these examples inside like live. So give me a second to reshare my screen again, like my full screen. Okay. So I have prepared an example, which is a very simple code of what we just saw, which means that we are importing the WS provider from Polkadot API. We are initiating it with a trusted URL of Western RPC Polka.io, creating the API, and then interacting with the chain. I'm going to just run that part of the code, and we're going to see how does this look inside the browser. So this is how the code looks inside the browser. It took 1.17 seconds. It's running. It's using the RPC that we just saw, and it's using the Polkadot.js API. I'm going to do exactly the same, and I'm going to show you how the code needs to change in order to see how this will work. So the only thing you have to do is, as said before, instead of importing WS provider, you are installing and using the Polkadot RPC provider Substrate Connect, and from there importing the SC provider and the well-known chains. Then, instead of creating the provider using WS provider, we're going to create the provider with CS provider, and in here we can specify either a specification string or the given well-known chains that we are already bundled. So we can just well-known chain and choose one of these IDs that shows which chain we want to connect to. So we're going to choose again West End. Then we're going to connect the provider. Connect, because we need to initiate the live client in case it's not initiated. And then, as before, nothing else is changing. The API is created with the provider given, and then we interact with the chain. So I'm going to now rerun the same project and see how this will be on the screen. So right now it's initiated almost same time because of the use of the extension, of course, and we are having a live client running inside our browser and not using a third-party API, not using our own running local node. Now, let's see what I have next. Okay, now we're going to see some examples on the presentation about how to integrate parachain or how to integrate multiple chains inside the app. So, in this example, we're going to see how to integrate the parachain with using the Substrate Connect. So again, we just import the SC provider and well-known chain. We import the parachain specification from the JSON file inside our code, and then we connect to the code we are interested in, to the relay chain that the parachain exists as a provider. And instead of connecting this provider, we create another SC provider that has the JSON stringified parachain as the first parameter, and the provider creates on the previous step as the second parameter. Then connecting that provider and passing it to the API promise create will give us access to that parachain. So we'll see a demo after that on how parachain is running. And now we're going to see another sample of code of how we can connect to multiple known relay chains. So if we want our application to connect at the same time and retrieve information from Kusama and Polkadot and West End, what we can do is exactly the same steps, but we use the SC provider with Polkadot well-known chain and create a provider, and with West End, a new SC provider, and we connect to that as well. And then we have two different APIs that we can interact using that, the known Polkadot.js API queries. So that is how you can use the RPC provider that we created for Substrate Connect inside Polkadot.js. Now, you can also use Substrate Connect for library authors by installing it, npm install Substrate Connect or yarn add Substrate Connect. And this is a bit more complicated, but you can actually write your code and create your own CS client, add your chains, as many chains as you want, and have a callback that you can then communicate the JSON RPCs, etc., etc. More information in the documentation. You can have you have a link on the bottom left of this slide that can take you to the documentation of how to use for more advanced user for library authors the Substrate Connect and integrate. This is a good example that you can use Substrate Connect actually inside an extension, as it's already been done, and we'll see it in a while. So let's see some demos of, as the Parachim, as I said before, or some more. So sharing it again my full screen, I'm going to use, for sake of speed, I don't know if I'm sharing my whole screen. I do. So another demo that exists here is the Parachim Demo. So now we can see that the same code as before is actually trying to connect Westmint, which is the Parachim of West End. So what it does, the code does exactly the same thing, meaning that is the code we saw a minute ago. It creates a well-known chain, a provider, to the West End. Then it creates another CSSC provider, giving the Westmint parachain spec and the Western provider that was created. We connect to that provider, pass it to the API, and then we can query that parachain. And we can see here that we are connected to Westmint. We get some information, Genesis hash, etc., etc. Now, the second example we gave was if we want to connect to multiple chains, meaning that we want to connect to more than one chain at the same time. That's the multi-demo that I have here. And this shows that we want to connect at the same time to 4 chains and get the latest header for each chain. And this just happened. And we can see the chain headers changing as soon as a new block is authored. And inside the extension, we can see that we're connected to all of the 4 chains. And inside the options page, we can see that we are connected to all the 4 chains. And the application is the multiple networks application connected to all 4 networks. Now, I'm going to go to the next slide. It's happening. It is happening on simply real-life applications. So right now, what exists out there is 3 main applications that have Substrate Connect integrated. This is the Polkadot.js apps. You can, when choosing the network, you can find the light client experimental option in the nodes. And if you do so, we can actually try it at once. We can see that if we go here and we choose the side menu where the network exists, choose the light client experimental, we're actually connected to that right now. We can see that everything is working in very fast pace with a light client instead of connecting to some network. Then there is the Polkadot staking dashboard. I'm just going to try to find the URL. I'll have to stop my presentation to do so. Yeah. Okay, and this is the Polkadot dashboard that already, actually yesterday we got integrated the light clients inside. Again, we can see that it's connecting and we have everything connected here. And lastly, a very fun presentation from Talisman that happened during 2022 Polkadot Decoded. You can find the URL here, where there is a comparison between RPC nodes and light client with a very not fast, extremely slow internet connection. And you can watch that video and see what happened. Lastly, here are some useful links for Substrate Connect, which is our GitHub repo where you can open issues, questions, and everything you may want. Then there is our landing page of Substrate Connect, where you can find more information and the examples that were in this presentation. This will be replaced soon by a page in the Substrate docs.io, Substrate.io docs. And finally, link to our package of our presentation, or the package of Substrate Connect, apologies. Yeah, and I think that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much. I think we have to go to, we will have a look on the questions, if any, now.
Right. Thank you, Nikos, for the insightful session. I'm sure attendees have had a better and in-depth understanding of Substrate Connect and its features. So next up, we do have a few questions from our audience and community. They want to know your take on the future of Web3 hirings, like the job openings in Web3. So, the skills we need to acquire before.
Like what are the next job openings in Web3? I think.
Right. What are the opportunities? What are the opportunities once a developer is very affluent in Substrate and technologies like Parachim? So,
well, Substrate is already spreading out there with all the parachains being connected almost every couple of months. A new parachain is added, and I think there is a very big need of Rust developers, but also giving tools like light clients and similar apps that can make the world more decentralized, like the web to more decentralized, instead of standing on specific servers and stuff. That can give very big opportunities, not only to backend developers like us, but also front-end developers. So I believe there is a very big opening of jobs out there and very big chances, not only inside big companies, but also startups that want to get involved in the Web3.
Okay. So another question is, how much experience does one need to have to get started on Substrate Connect?
Almost very little. I would say very little experience with Polkadot JS API is needed, because Substrate Connect is only giving you, like if you use the RPC provider as given, it's just giving you a different gateway to use the Polkadot JS API, right? So JavaScript and TypeScript, of course, but just very small knowledge of Polkadot JS API and how to use it. There are very nice documentation out there that people can read in a few hours and can be familiar with the whole thing. So I would say very minimum experience is needed. Just intention to read, like people will need to read some stuff.
Right. Okay. So another one is a follow-up, basically. So we have a question of which beginner level languages are the best to start learning if you are very new to the world of development. And
well, the easiest one to start working with is, of course, JavaScript and TypeScript later on. It depends on the experience that the person has. I don't want to go and say that this is easy and that is not easy and stuff. Like, it depends if there is any background at all or no background. If there is no background, I would say plain JavaScript would be the first stepping stone to work on these things.
Okay. Understood. So I think we'll take one last question here. The question is, the dApps we see on Polkadot and all the dApps we are seeing here, are they reliant on services like AWS and Microsoft Azure, and how reliant they are on centralized services like AWS?
Well, this is the point of the light client, actually. This is the point that you don't have to rely on this kind of services. Like if your dApp is running, you can run your dApp in an IPFS, in the centralized URLs. You don't, like, you can have them on AWS or in other centralized servers, but that's not the point. The point is, if you can install it in an IPFS and run there, it is even better. It's reliable. It still is reliable, all these services. but we have seen outages every now and then, even of big companies. So that's how I would say reliable it is, right? Like even we saw outages of Google or Facebook in the past few months.
Okay. So, we'll take one last question from our audience. So, what all browsers are supported?
Right now, we support all browsers. Every browser that can run JavaScript in it, like the latest V8 JavaScript runtime. We have done some features added in the past month and a half, so that we can export Substrate Connect and the RPC provider also to CJS, not only module, but also to support like older versions of JavaScript. And we also support bundlers, like most of the bundlers for React, like Parcel or Rollup or Webpack. And so we support as much as we can support. And if there is anyone who finds something is not supported, please do open an issue on our repo so we can have a look on that and try to help you out.
Okay. Thank you so much for the clarity.
You're welcome.
So I think any more comments from your side, Nikos? Anything you would like to add further?
Not really. What I would suggest everyone is play around with Substrate Connect, have a look on light clients, have a look on Substrate, because my personal belief is like it's the next step to the future of Web3, and do it as soon as possible. That would be good for you.
Okay. So I think that all sums it up. Yes. So very, very insightful session. Thank you so much. So thank you guys for tuning in. I would like to thank everyone for coming out today and taking part in our workshop. It goes without saying that this workshop would not have been possible without Mr. Nikos, Parity Technologies, and the Polkadot team. Thank you so much for this collaborative effort. We really have had an interesting conversation with you today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we will be coming up with more such workshops for you. So make sure you stay updated by following IBC Media on our social channels, and you can visit IBC Media, which is our website, to know more. Thank you, and I will catch up with you soon. Stay tuned.